episode of our first season on Design to Connect. I'm Arezoo.
And I'm Hadil.
Hey Hadil, firstly. I guess today our listeners will experience what's it like to be a part of one of our random and deep conversations, that we have normally together. But yeah, I'm super excited about this talk.
I know, me too. And hello to everyone that's tuning in, and welcome to joining our roller coaster. Let's call it that way. I guess, we're all starting 2022, which I still can't believe that we're 2022. That's another thing to really reflect on a very fresh and interesting note, because I feel like the both of us took everything that we learned from the lockdown and from those days that we sat down and we questioned one another and reflected on into something new and positive and, Designed to Connect was born. So I'm really, really glad that we were able to embrace all of our emotions that came out from our personal journeys. And here we are with you, trying to connect with you to share our experiences. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's really true, Hadil. I mean, imagine if we weren't like both of us questioning and reflecting, let's say, in this time of COVID, about what type of architect we wanted to be on LinkedIn, let's say publicly, we were questioning ourselves. But if we weren't doing that publicly, we would have never connected and this would have never happened. Uh, I mean, I say what kind of architect because we are an architect, uh, but I'm sure that regardless of what profession, people have, so many people went through the same journey of questioning themselves, and because of this moment of pause that we have been given, it has given us the time to reflect and ask ourselves, like, is this what I really want from my life? Is this how I want my life to be looking like on an everyday basis and like forever? So I think yeah, I think even though maybe our questioning process started a bit earlier, I know it did for me, but COVID and the lockdown was a really big catalyzer for everything. I mean, it made us to connect and actually start this podcast because we wanted to question. This was our way of questioning the issues that we were seeing in our industry, the injustices that we were seeing in our industry. uh, so yeah, that was the main reason behind the podcast, and that's how, let's say, we translated our questions and whatever was happening in our brain and all those reflection to something that we think it might be useful maybe to others also. And let's say all the questions that we had around injustices in our professional life, in the professional industry, how our industry, the whole architecture is seen as service, and this negative view and perspective that is around humanitarian and social work and social architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, honestly, I feel the exact same way. And I feel like I am still trying to learn um to how to voice my opinion and my questionings in the world that we live in. I still get anxious every time I do so. Um and I'm not sure if it's a good or bad thing, but I usually feel that I say whatever really comes to my mind out loud without thinking of the consequences that that my word choice of words might cause. Because in my head I feel like my intentions are really, really pure, and I'm just venting. I'm just venting out loud. I'm like, hey, read what I wrote, and tell me if you agree or not agree, or what your opinion. Because in my head, that's how I can learn. And I remember one of the posts I posted on LinkedIn. It was one of the recent ones while I was starting to question. I truly never thought that it would gravitate audience nor comments, or people reaching out to me, either thanking me for the post or either be warning me, deal, whoa, what was that post? Are you not scared to losing your job? And I I felt that this post shook me, because I never ever imagined that it would have caused that reaction from people. It overwhelmed me, and I remember I went back and I read the post over like 1,000 times, just wondering what was so alarming about it. Was me asking about people, why people in the industry were leaving, asking why we were so underpaid, asking about, why our industry was very toxic. Um, what's our role as architects contributing to the social well-being of the environment or the city that we're living in? So alarming for people to make me feel that I was jeopardizing my career. That really scared me a little bit, and I feel like what created me, actually pushed me even more to question, because I was more intrigued to understand that, is there really something underneath that people don't want me to figure out? I mean, like, now I'm like going into those conspiracy theories, but like, that's that's not how it was. But it just triggered my questioning even more and more and more. And I was very curious to understand how the industry, how the system functioned. I became more interested not just in architecture, but really I like went into so much depth with politics, economy, philosophy, and even politics, which is something that I'm definitely not a big fan of. But I really wanted to understand how all of those were interconnected, and related to one another, for me to find answers to the questions that I was having, and learn more about the different structures that, or like the systematic structures that every city functions upon. And that's when I realized that I am definitely not a big fan of capitalism. Just throwing that out there.
just to know.
Just a
Yeah.
side note.
I mean, I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. And I guess like we're living in a society, in a culture that really does not encourage like questioning. Yeah, we prefer to keep things the way they are, and we care about it that much, to the extreme that we actually sacrifice humanity, or like the our planet, that we're living in, just to keep that system unchanged and unquestioned. Uh, this not changing is a really like important issue for us, I guess. But regarding what you've said about how we were both questioning, I think that this questioning and this going deeper actually made the our connection, also deeper. So uh, I think we were both of us, we were both challenging ourselves to dig deeper and to break away from these taboos. And that actually brought us closer together. And it actually led to us, starting a podcast. So I'm happy about that. Even if it's a difficult journey, I'm happy that we are actually doing it.
You are listening to Design to Connect. Thank you for tuning into this moment. We will be right back. Just like you mentioned, I guess that's why we both decided to start the season with episode 1 with Arezoo and Hadil, to get you a little bit, like, get you to get into our heads, for you to understand us more, and for us to be vulnerable with you. Because we thought that, if we wanted to go deep and interview people and ask them about their experiences, we need to start with ourselves. And what's better than starting this with Arezoo questioning me and me questioning her? So get ready.
I'm actually really happy that we are doing this and we're having this conversation. Like, going deep into, let's say, both our professional life and kind of also our personal lives, while being in two different sides of the world. I'm sitting right now chatting with you, sipping on my tea, on my evening tea. Uh, anyway, this is a very Persian way of drinking tea. I mean, in glass and not in mug. Uh, and you're in the other side of the world drinking your morning coffee. Yeah.
Mhm.
So chatting from Milan and Toronto together. And before we start, I wanted to say, Hadil, I'm really, really grateful that we are doing this. So thank you so much for that. You messaged me that day, and that we are doing this. So I'm really grateful to you
Thank you
and for
for
our
being that
connection.
love person you are, really.
Yeah. So let's do this.
Let's start.
Uh, let's start by talking a little bit about ourselves, maybe.
Mhm.
Um, should I start? Okay. So I'm Arezoo, and I feel weird talking about myself. Myself? No, I'm one person, so myself. But jokes aside, I have been born in Shiraz, which is a city in south central part of Iran. And this city is literally known for its gardens and its poets. So it's a really romantic city, let's say. Uh, and since I was 18, so let's say 9 years ago, I've been living alone and abroad. I first lived in Cyprus for 5 years, and then now I'm living in Italy for almost 4 years. And I think so much of me is defined by this journey that I've taken outside of what I called home, what I called, let's say, that comfort zone of home, that everything is very familiar. And I think I'm a mixture of these two cultures of East and West, and what I've learned, during these years of living in these two extremely different worlds. So yeah, I guess that's it about me.
Very, very interesting. And I guess that's what intrigued me to know a little bit more about you. And I hope that also intrigues our listeners, wanting them to know more about us. So I guess now it's my turn to talk about who I am. And just like you are, I'm not a big fan of that question, but I'm Hadil. Um, and let me just start by giving you a heads up. Usually I'm an extremely quiet person in nature. And I usually like to listen more than I talk. However, when I do talk, especially about things that I'm extremely passionate about, I don't really shut up. Like I like talk so much, and I usually go off tangent. So I want you to enjoy the ride with me, and if I do so, just embrace it and just let it be, allow it. And I guess I'm Lebanese and ethnically Lebanese. I'm currently living in Toronto. I've been living in Toronto since 2018, and I that's when I left Lebanon in 2017. Actually, I lived in another city before I resided in Toronto, and Lebanon is a place that I've been calling home for so long, and it's a place that's sadly aching right now. And a big part of my passion towards what I called home at that time, stems from the love that I have for this place and wanting to contribute to the development of it in a healthy way. I moved around a lot. I would say I lived in 8 different places in the span of 10 years. So this definitely, played a major role in defining my journey and my experiences because just like you said, I was exposed to so many cultures from east to west, I met so many people, and it widened my thoughts about how the world is and how the world is different in different areas around the city. um, and that's why I don't know how to define myself, to be honest. I feel like I, just like you are, I am a mix of cultures, I am a mix of emotions. I love art, I love music, I love to dance. So if you ever lose me, you're probably going to find me on the dance floor. But for now, that's who I am. And I guess every episode, I hope you learn a little bit more about who I am. You are listening to Design to Connect. Thank you for tuning in till this moment. We will be right back.
But yeah, I guess more than who we are, we both had very different reasons to why we decided to study architecture. Um, and Yeah, maybe we can talk about that. I think I'm gonna start with myself. My journey has been kind of weird, to be honest. I guess I have always been a creative person, and I always had this dream of helping people. Let's say when I was in primary and secondary school, you could literally find me in the weekends, like daydreaming about volunteering or helping people, or just sharing any kind of love. But I guess due to some circumstances and let's say the culture that I was living in that moment, maybe the type of schools that I went to, so much of my journey became about exterior approval and not about what I wanted to give, but what I wanted to get from my external surrounding. Um, well, this story is not very related to architecture, but I'm just going to say because it's relevant to my whole life. So I'm just going to say it. I think when I was, let's say, in my teenage years, I think as so many people feel this way, I really felt ugly and like out of scale in so many ways. Like I was being bullied for my height because I'm very small. You can see me here, and let's say about my body image in as a whole. So it was around that time that luckily or unluckily I started to become known for being the smart kid or the let's say hardworking kid in my school and in my family, let's say. And I was being encouraged. I finally found something that was giving me identity, that was giving me approval, from outside, and I wanted to keep it. So let's say so much of my next years in high school, then in university, and my master's, my bachelor's became about that. It became about becoming the top student. I don't know, winning competitions, getting scholarships. Yeah, becoming honor student, and um, that was what I wanted to get, and I got it. And I was living in this, let's say, approved version of myself. And the reason that I actually chose architecture was also, let's say, very superficial. It was because in those years in Iran, architecture was really trendy. So that's what I chose. So many of my choices just came, let's say, from being accepted and being kind of, I don't know, loved by my surroundings. So uh, I mean, I was in this bubble of myself that I made for myself, that I was living, let's say, comfortably, because now I had an identity. I was a smart, even if I didn't feel beautiful, it didn't matter because I was the smart one. Until this first year of my master, that I went through, let's say, so many things, that some of it also was related to my education. And I went through a really deep depression of 1 year of depression, in a way that every morning I needed like 1 hour of talking to my mom to just be able to get out of bed and go to school. And in that year, I was going through so many questions and so many things, so many reflections with myself. But it was in that year that it really hit me. And I was like, oh my God, I've been living my whole life. I got all this scholarship, all these grades that I'm proud of, but I haven't done anything useful for my society. And, you know, my whole life felt so meaningless. And it felt as if I was running after a meaningless like journey, a meaningless identity. So I guess that year was when like I decided that mainstream architecture didn't have any meaning for me anymore, and I wanted to do more. So yeah. Well, that was my journey. That so much of it was very superficial, like my choices. But I know that you actually didn't make your choices this superficially, and you actually always wanted to be an architect. So could you tell us a little bit more about your journey?
Wow, Arezoo, that was extremely heartwarming. And thank you so much for being so vulnerable with us and sharing this side of yourself with us today. And I really, really hope you know that I am very proud of you. Even though, I never met you, but I'm proud of the person you are. And I'm proud that you took your lowest point and your vulnerabilities and insecurities and shifted them to something so beautiful. Um, Thank you, really. And um, I guess for me to share my story as well, I think this is our third time recording it right now because we have to tell, I guess, our our listeners that. But I don't know what's happening. That every time I'm like sharing the story, something is triggers. But anyways, for me, to share like my reasonings to why I chose architecture, I want to take you a little bit on a memory lane with me, for you to have a better understanding, because I feel like there's so many layers to for me to answer that question. I grew up in a town called Rumayle, which is at the border of the city that I'm originally from, Saida, and that's in south of Lebanon. At that time, growing up in that area was not very well developed. So we didn't really have internet connection. We didn't really have satellite. And even if we did, I don't think my parents were a big fan of letting us watch TV. They were very concerned about, like, how we spent our free time, and they always wanted to make sure that we're using it to stimulate our brains, so either reading or either doing something meaningful in the garden or at the house. And every time like we chose to watch a cartoon, it had to like my mom had to agree to if we were allowed to watch it or not. So I was very, very disconnected. I was already very disconnected from my surroundings and my friends, because when I used to go, for example, to school, everything that made like was common between them was not common with me, because they would talk about like, what was the latest thing you watched? Did you hear about this trend? They knew all about the pop culture, and I was like nowhere close to where they were. And I guess that created some insecurities about, like, because I felt like I was not accepted or part of that popular uh, kid group. Anyway, see, that's one of the reasons. Like, this is an off tangent, not related to the question. I told you I tend to go off tangents, but no, the reasons why I wanted to tell you that story is because while I was growing up, like part of like the means of the entertainment that I used to create for myself was either creating crafts, creating my own games, creating my own Barbie doll houses, using the things that I had at home. And we also had neighbors across of us. They were actually refugees, a family of six that lived in one room. Imagine, like, six people living in one room. And playing with them every time we used to go back home, I used to feel extremely uncomfortable. And I used to ask myself, how is it fair? And why is it that I have all that space in my home when someone my age that I was just playing with outside is going back and sleeping with five other people on the floor? Um, it really, really shook me as a child, and it just made me feel extremely privileged. But I was really unhappy with that privilege that I came with, because I just felt that there was something unfair and something was just not making sense. especially when I started to get to know the family on a deeper level. And I realized how smart and talented these people were, and all of the solutions and the methods that they were coming up with to, to cook, to create cooling solutions for them to like tolerate the heat uh, that Lebanon we encounter in Lebanon. And they taught me so much about our land because they used to grow vegetables over there. So it was a completely different experience that I had growing up as a child. Like my childhood was really, I spent it playing in like the, oh my God, what's it called? Like the my God, where you grow like plants, the greenhouses. Oh my God, I
Okay.
can't believe the word. Yeah, like I spent it playing in
Wow.
greenhouses and or in my room, like with napkins and just creating like artwork. So anyways, that's where my questioning started to happen, because I just felt that, like I didn't feel like we were living in a justice or in a fair society at all. And also my parents made sure to teach us so much about community and social work, my especially like my dad and my mom very much. But my dad, because he was also like he had that political and revolutionary character to him, he tried to implement that in us, because he cared so much about the community. So the summer camps that I used to attend really consisted of workshops that taught us values, social work, human rights, um, which explains a lot, again, the energy that's inside of me that, to always wanting to do something. It was never like similar. The summer camps that I attended were not like the regular boy or girl scouts that you would
Mhm.
hear of. And I guess all those experiences nourished my love to architecture, even though as a kid, I didn't know what architecture was. But like, that's when I started to ask, what can I do with my skills? And what architecture was brought to my attention. And I started to do more research about it. And my dad was always like in his back of his head, always said that he would love to have one of his kids become an architect, um, which made me even more excited to become one, because I wanted to please my dad at that point. But of course, that was not the reason why I chose to do architecture. I looked at architecture as a tool that will aid me in doing something good to the community and create changes in dynamics we see things. So I guess that's what started my journey. I started my education at Carleton in Toronto. Sorry, at Carleton in Ottawa in Canada. And I studied there for 1.5 years. And I decided to go back to Lebanon after that, because I was just not able to connect with the city or the people or even how things were taught, especially after everything that I've been through. And my idea of what architecture was, I just couldn't. I went through a very, very bad depression, and I went back to Lebanon, and I went to university and I did a 5-year program, graduated in 2016. And that made me more certain that, architecture and the path of social and field work is the thing that I really want to do. So I started thinking of how I can start creating my own project to help, come up with sustainable and smart ways to create safe spaces for unprivileged people. But unfortunately, 6 years after my graduation, I can't believe it. So honestly, I cannot believe that it's been 6 years since I've graduated. Um, I've been working in a corporate environment in Toronto. I went through a very, very dark hole of depression for so many reasons. You know, the fact that I guess I relocated cities, I relocated places in such short span of period of time, having an idea of what I wanted to do with architecture, and then being faced with the reality of the corporate and like the corporate world and realities that we live in here, shook me and made me feel that I don't belong here. I don't belong to this world. And I just felt such a disconnect from everyone around me. And I created this numbing, you know, I don't know, like, yeah, just I, I coped with it not in the right way, I would say. But that's when I decided to start therapy, started to work on myself and my issues, because I felt that if I wanted to contribute to the world and I wanted to start doing the things I want, I have to heal myself first before I heal the world that we live in. So I've been doing that for almost 2 years now. And I say, I'm very thankful for the experiences and the corporate world in particular, because I feel like it was an opportunity for me to see the world from a different lens. And here I am right now. Yeah, I hope I didn't go off tangent so much, and I hope, it's not easy for me to share um, certain things in my life, because I think that, I just disconnected so much from the past, that the past is the past. It brought me to the person I am today. So I try not to dwell so much on it. And in the same time, because I want to make sure that whatever I say would not hurt anyone that's listening, because my intention is that, those are things that I've experienced. So sometimes, if, let's say, my friends, my family might hear it, it's like I don't want them to feel that they've caused that much harm to me, because it's unintentional. That's what they knew best at that time. um Again, that's another off tangent I just went on. So take it from there.
No, thank you. Thank you so much that you really shared all of these things. And I know some might feel very personal and it's not really easy to share. But I really feel you when you were talking about like the feeling of not belonging. I feel the moment that you get out of your country and you go somewhere else, uh, from that exact moment, you don't feel that you belong anywhere anymore because you you now face a new culture and you can't go back to your culture and live the way that you were living because now you've seen another reality, but you don't feel completely also belonging to the new reality. So I guess whoever who has immigrated can really relate to that, not feeling of belonging and becoming all these different people that you carry with yourself as you move, every time that you move. um, I really loved your story, and thank you so much, really, for sharing all that and being again vulnerable. Um, I know it's not very easy because it's not very easy for me also to do that, but I'm happy that we're doing it. But what was really interesting for me is that we came from very different points of view. We have had very different reasons and, let's say, circumstances that led us to the decisions that we made and led us actually here. But we are here, both of us, questioning the same things, even if we came completely from different backgrounds, reasons. So this is really interesting for me, and I think it's really, really valuable, that no matter where you come from, why did you choose this, this industry. These are the questions that might be going on in everybody's head. It's just a matter of actually asking the question. So yeah.
And not only just question, like asking the question, but actually taking the initiative to connect with people and learn more about them, because I feel this helped a lot in my journey as well. Like you said, when you feel so disconnected, you feel like you're alone in this world, and you think that you're going through this journey by yourself. But just like you said, we had completely different experiences and journeys, but yet we're connecting on something that's similar. And in my head, I felt, or I thought that just because no one lived my experiences means that they're not like me, or because everyone that I've used to surround myself with was the extreme opposite or the extreme difference. I always felt, that I didn't belong, until I started trying to reach out and connect with people. It helped so much, and that's what we're trying to do right now. Connect with more like-minded people to ease our journey and for us to learn from one another more and more.
Exactly.
And this makes me more curious. No, now I'm gonna start interrogating you, to know, what was it during your school years that made you fall in love more with architecture? And you talk about it with so much passion, when we have conversations together. So, you know, was it the education that empowered you as a person, empowered your passion, or was it something that you developed separately?
Okay. First, I should say that I'm really happy that you feel I'm giving out that energy. I wasn't sure that I'm giving that energy out, but I'm happy. um, I think like having had the opportunity to study in let's say East and West, and like in two very different cultures. Like I'm feel so lucky that I had the opportunity to see architecture from two very different lenses. I must say that for me, like except a couple of months during the university time, I really enjoyed studying architecture. One reason can be that I'm a geek and I love studying in general. So most probably, if you would make me study anything, I would be this happy just by studying. But I think that uh, having seen these two ways of teaching in these two universities that I studied in Eastern Mediterranean University in Cyprus and in Politecnico in Milano, uh, I must say that yeah, for me the experience was nice, but that doesn't mean that it was perfect. It was far from perfect. There are so many things that need to change in the educational system that I think if I want to go now into the details of it, it will be so long, and we will address some of them in our talk. But I think from my personal experience, I think there were two things that stands out during my education, and this is not so much about, let's say, the courses that I've taken during my education, but more about the type of people that I met. Let's say how my professors were, how they were acting, let's say, or the education system in general, how it was. So I think from my education in Cyprus, I really learned to be empathic. Uh, I will talk about this later in more detail, but like living in Cyprus in general and just being in that environment, living in an island which is small, that everybody, and also in the university itself also looked like a community. I learned to be empathic, but not only towards people, also towards, I don't know, animals, or towards my environment. And during my education in Politecnico, I really learned to be independent and like develop my own way of thinking. And I think this was again because of the educational system that wasn't, let's say, kind of supportive, but it helped me to become more independent. So let's say the professors weren't taking baby steps with you through the steps of architecture. Let's say the education was very radical, like they would just throw information on you and you had to learn by yourself. And it wasn't easy, but I think that that helped me to develop my own way of thinking and seeing architecture. And I think yeah, my education was empowering in these two senses, that I think I can't take it for granted also, because I think these are two very important skills that I learned and I'm really grateful for. But I'm not saying that education was perfect. It was far from perfect, but yeah, it was empowering in these senses, let's say.
Wow, I appreciate and love how aware you are. And I wanna add something to that because I really find it, this is part of like some of the things that I'm can't like teach myself about, that we definitely do need, for example, like in the architectural work, right? Like in the workforce, you're always going to find people that are going to work with developers that just want to develop or create buildings that are, just like fast paced, and I don't want to say cheap, but cheap architecture. And you're always going to find another people that are more invested in, like more meaningful creating spaces, creating designs. But unfortunately, the school in our educational system, it's just geared towards one way. It forces the information on you. It forces things like as if it's you're studying law. And architecture is not like law. We need to, just like in the workplace, there are ways that you can go about it. I think we need to start implementing that into our educational system and creating a balance, especially in our field, in my opinion, in architecture. Because if you're coming up with a building, or if you're coming up with creating a space to a certain community, or for whatever reason you're designing a product, right, you need to understand who you're designing for. And we are missing that link in our educational system completely. So it's interesting. It's interesting that you said, you mentioned how like your experience like was like that in school. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you already started to tell about, this disconnect between architecture education and, let's say, the work environment. And we very often talk about that, like, it seems that architecture education is completely something else from the professional life. Like, there are so many people that love the architecture education, but then when they enter the working environment, they're like, okay, what's happening? And there is also vice versa. So I wanted to know your thoughts about that. Now that you're working in a corporate environment, I wanted to ask you how your architectural education actually developed your thoughts around your responsibility as an architect, your value as an architect, and even your empathy towards your society. And yeah, how did your education actually shape your path, if it did at all, or if you can share about that?
You are listening to Design to Connect. Thank you for tuning into this moment. We will be right back. Oof, I feel like I have so much to say about that, as usual. I feel like at this point, nothing alarms you, Arezoo. But let me start, like, telling you, like, talking to you about my perspective from a more general lens. And I might not be answering your question directly just yet. So, but I think it's important to shed the light on this topic. So, based on my experiences and my reflections, I personally believe that collaboration, communication, and time management are extremely key skills to have when you're working in our industry. But unfortunately, I feel like those three elements are missing big time, which leads to poor leadership. And not only that, but it creates such a toxic environment. And I was really trying to reflect on that um, concept to understand to why our industry is extremely toxic. And I went back to understand more of how that was developed during my education. So, in my school experiences, during the 5 years of my degree, I think I did maybe like a couple of group assignments, and neither of them were design heavy. All of the design and the executional projects were solo. So you and those projects really were like they determined whether you fail or pass the semester. And at the end of every project, you had like, I guess, a jury where you had to present your ideas to see if, you're gonna pass or you're gonna fail. So this kind of creates an extremely toxic ego in one's behavior. Not everyone. I mean, like, again, I might be generalizing, but I'm solely speaking about myself, because this ego you develop, you feel like you want to defend your idea, and that your idea is like the you give your idea such importance, because imagine you haven't slept for 3 days, you've been working um unrealistic hours to create a concept or to come up with this final project. You come and present it to the jury, and then within seconds, they belittle you. They make you feel like you're nothing. They make you feel like you are not worthy of being an architect. Okay. So imagine how much such experiences crushes someone's self esteem, especially if someone already has confidence and esteem issues. And this exact same narrative, unfortunately, is being carried to our workplace, which diminishes the word empathy in our industry, unfortunately. And that's if I'm talking from empathy, from like the behaviors of from a individual, like from a communication perspective, or from a collaboration perspective, or from a team perspective. And obviously, this creates poor leadership, because even in our offices, everyone is thinks that their idea is the best or their method is the best. There's no communication skills. We don't know how to communicate with one another. We don't know how to create a good schedule. And unfortunately, we don't even give space for people that just graduated to share their ideas with us, because we feel like, who are you to come and tell me, someone like myself, let's say I'm 6 years of experience, and you just graduated, you're going to tell me how to do things. And to me, this just never made sense. And I don't think it will ever make sense. And I guess that's part of the challenges I have at work. But again, I just feel like we need to start in the educational system to think about how to prepare someone to enter the workforce or real life. And this is something that we are extremely, extremely missing. I guess now to answer your question about the educational role in regards to empathy and giving back to society. Um, See, in my experience, I I was someone that always tried to add a meaning um, concept to like the design that I was trying to do. And I always try to learn so much about the urban context and understand the fabric of the place that my design was going to contribute to. Um, and again, it's all about perspectives, and this could be very subjective. But I realized that this was something that was extremely disregarded in school. There was really no appreciation to the research nor the analysis that someone comes up with. They cared and focused so much at the end product. And if your end product was like a simple thing, they would crush it, and then they would make you feel and think that you have done nothing, and not even give you the opportunity to explain how you really got there, or for you to share with you the knowledge and the things that you um, realized during your research. But yeah, for sure, there are some professors and students that advocated for creating meaningful concepts and for you to understand the city fabric even more. But was it really being implemented? I personally don't think so. And that's why I feel that you become less empathetic as a student, because you get to a level that you're like, you know what, I just want to pass. Like, just I like, especially after like all the energy and the hours that you put into your design, you stop caring and be like, I don't care at this point. I just want to pass and get this over with. So it takes your drive. It diminishes your drive a little bit. And I think empathy is something that's developed within a person and within the experiences that you expose yourself to, and how much you are really willing to invest yourself in the project that you're doing. But I don't think it's definitely stemming out from the educational system, because even though they would say that, oh, your concept needs to be meaningful, at the end of the day, are you really, you know, really care about the meaning and the concept that I have, or you're caring more about the end product and if it looks cool in your subjective mind or not? And I found a lot of empathy in the people studying architecture. And I really, really think one of the best conversations that you can have is with an architect. And again, this could be subjective because I am one. But think about it this way, right? We are given one question or like a one project to do. And let's say I am in a class with 30 students. At the end of the day, you are seeing 30 completely different perspectives and 30 completely different design approaches. So imagine that you get into those 30 different minds to see why did you come up with that solution and why did you come up with that design. And it starts helping you shift your perspective and seeing that um, like program from different ways. And imagine we collaborated together to come up even with better and better solutions. That's that's what architectural school is supposed to be, at least in my perspective. So this is something that I feel I am personally still struggling with and trying to find a balance with, like how to balance research analysis, empathy, might care so much about the social fabric and the city fabric that I live with, and the end product. And how much can we really contribute to the well-being of the place that we live in is something that I'm also still trying to figure out. And something that I never ever imagined myself taking the corporate route. I always wanted to take the route where I'm doing like more of the social architectural aspect and like the like being on field more, because I really wanted to connect with people. Because in my perspective, when you connect with people and understand their needs, that's when the best design really, like, that's when you have the best design and best ideas. And I got an opportunity in India actually to work there as an internship. But because we developed such a negative narrative to what social architecture means and how much it like doesn't make you grow as a person, and of course I'm talking from the financial figure, and because I of the reality that I'm in, I decided to take another route, and I accepted a corporate job in Guelph, Canada, in 2017. Um, and it changed a lot of my reality to what architecture can do. And it 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 was definitely an interesting experience, which maybe one day I'll share as well. I hope I answered your question, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Adil. And it was really interesting how you shared about like your experience about how your education affected like your understanding of empathy, and how you pointed out that how important it is that we see design and architecture as a cooperation, and not competition. And I think that is such an important point that we need to like uh, talk about in the education system, instead of creating competition between different projects and then calling projects, first, second, third, and then things that might not have the other projects not giving them any value. It can be much more beautiful if we can actually put all of our all what we have together and try to come up with the best solution, for the world, because at the end it's one world that we live in, and we need one good solution, for all of us to live in. So Yeah, I guess we need to understand that that's humanity maybe before reaching to it in architecture education. But when you were talking about your experience, I remembered my experience in Cyprus in the educational system, and I told you before that one of the main points that I learned from my education in Cyprus was empathy. I mean, after you sharing your experience, I feel really lucky that I've been exposed to let's say such kind of environment, but I want to share it so maybe it can be an inspiration for other educational places, because I think it really affected me in a positive way. um, so as I said before, Cyprus is a small island, and my university, it was also in a very in a university city that was also small. And I think so much of like my learning around the word empathy and my responsibility as an architect came from who my professors were as a person, you know, in their life. I remember that yeah, we had our design studios, but we had also workshops during the year that we were, for example, designing bird nests for birds, or like dog sheds to, you know, to, let's say, protect the animals during the cold seasons. And I remember if there was an earthquake nearby, or if when there was war in Syria, and unfortunately in Middle East these days it happens a lot, like in the neighboring countries. I remember the whole faculty would come together as a community, and, you know, talking about what each class could contribute. You know, how could we come together as, you know, all the different semesters, and one, for example, contribute in the food section, one in the you know, in the clothing section, and so we could help. You know, or I remember when I was entering two different semesters, they changed the subject of our design studio from a commercial complex uh, to one that was a social housing, and another one was elderly housing. In that time, I got really angry because I really wanted to design this cool, let's say, commercial complex, and I didn't realize the reason behind their let's say choices in that time. But later I understood that they wanted to make us understand that design and architecture is not only for the privileged part of society. If you're an architect, you should serve everyone. You should serve all ages. You should serve all people, either they are poor or rich.
Mhm.
So I feel that I have been really, really lucky to have been educated with some of the most kind and empathic people in the world, really. But I really feel that more universities should see themselves as communities that at the end of the day, they want to serve the world, you know. And I think now with the ideas of, let's say, ranking and which university is better, you know, so much of the education became about competition, but we don't think why did education start in the first place. You know, it was to make us ready to serve our community. And I think that's something that really existed in Cyprus, and I'm really grateful for that. But I really wish that other universities would take a step, you know, to
Mhm.
become like this.
You are listening to Design to Connect. We will be right back.
I completely agree. And even in the way that we do projects at school, right? Like I told you, it's like you're competing with your peer.
Mm.
Uh, um, you stop caring about the concept because all you care about, oh no, like I want to get a higher mark, or I'm trying to achieve a certain. Uh, 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 I want to stay like the first on top of my class. So when you start thinking about that, it just takes all the passion and the empathy towards what you do. It's like when you bring in the dollar value to what you do,
Exactly.
unfortunately.
Exactly. And it's just, shifting that perspective, because
Mm-hmm.
I think we are taught that in order to reach to something great in your life, there should be this competition that drives you. I think another more important and more powerful, let's say, uh, force that can drive you is being useful for your society. If you just shift your mind from like competing to being useful, you still will reach to the same, let's say, out product, even better, but with completely another result, because then what you make is empathic and it's with love, and I
True.
think it completely changes. So
100%.
yeah. So talking about my experience in Cyprus, I think I can talk about this experience because that I had experience in both East and West, and I know that you also had that. And we often talk about this differences between these two cultures, both in terms of education, but also in terms of professional life and way of living in general. So I wanted to ask you if you had faced any cultural shock in the education system, in your life as a person, when you lived in these very two different cultures, I must say.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. But before I answer you that, I just want to add something to the answer that you said, because I don't want the listeners to think that we are, saying that when we talk about passion or when we're saying about something that you invest your time so much in, that like, don't associate that with the dollar value, or don't create that competition within yourself, but do it in a healthy way, do it in a balanced way, do it in a way that, yes, sure, everything that you work hard for, you need to find results, but don't let that results control you, don't let the money factor control you, for it to take away the passion and the meaning behind what you do. But competition is very healthy, competition is needed, but as long as it's done in a healthy way. Um, Anyways, back to your question. For sure, if if to be quite like honest about it, I think I'm still trying to struggle, and I'm still trying to recover actually from that cultural shock, especially after experiencing the work life, because I think when you mature, right, like you start seeing things differently, you start questioning more. And when I started working in the Western world, I was extremely shocked, because I don't come from an extremely capitalist country. Lebanon is not like capitalist as North America is. So the way that things are done in Lebanon are a little bit different. I come from a place where there's an extreme appreciation to art, culture, music, and I was extremely heavily involved in the scene, which really reflected and shaped my idea of what kind of an architect I wanted to become, right? Because I wanted to integrate all of those elements to the person I am. And when I came here, I really tried to do the same thing. I remember, like, 2018, 2019, at pre-corona, I dedicated my life to work, because I'm like, I was given this opportunity and I wanted to grow as a person in my field. And I didn't miss an event. I always used to go to networking events. I tried to participate in like design weeks. Every time I hear something design related, I try to get involved in. And I really hope that you don't misinterpret what I'm trying to say here, but try to just understand where my thinking goes. I'm not trying to belittle any of the work that was done here. I think it's amazing, okay? But I personally felt extremely disconnected, and I felt that everything that I was involved with didn't have a purpose or didn't really have a meaning, because I wasn't sure what people were trying to do. I feel like there is such a lack of understanding to what the world is going through. We got stuck into a certain narrative, or we use certain words and that we hear often, and we say, oh, this project is to respond to inequality, let's say, okay? But I'm like, do we really know what inequality is? Did we Are we like asking the people that, you know, experienced inequality for us to really, the end result is going to really reflect what inequality is, you know? And this is the disconnect I felt. I definitely met such interesting people, and I saw very interesting installations and design, but there was always that disconnect. And I don't blame them, because at the end of the day, that's all they know of, that those are the experiences that they've encountered. So I felt that it was my duty now to kind of shed the light on my experiences coming from the East, how things are. And yes, I do understand that things are here are done differently, and culture is different. Everything here is driven by money, by success, by, oh, how many titles, or are you like, what are you doing to get to become a CEO? So everything here is very heavily focused on titles, money, and this is something that killed my passion towards what I do. And I'm struggling with it, because, aside of the work, just as a human being and just connecting with people, you're gonna feel like you're out of place. You feel like you're too much to the people around you, and people are gonna be like, just take it easy and enjoy life. Why do you care so much? And yeah, sure, I'm still trying to find the balance, between the East and the West. And but this is something I'm loving, because I am getting the best of two worlds, and I have certain beliefs that I hope to implement, and to keep allowing that passion, that revolutionary energy in me, let's say, to drive me to do better things. Um, and yeah, hopefully I can change. Not I would never do it alone. If I hope we can, as a community, create a community that shifts the way the architecture in North America is being led. So instead of us creating this bidding war, imagine we like the I live in a place where, for you to get a project, you have to go through a bidding war about who's like, bidding war. I mean, like, in like prices wise, who offers the cheapest quote for me to get a project. So I'm like, yeah, I understand money drives everything for sure. Uh, but I really, really feel that the narrative that this industry is in right now really needs to change, because it's reflecting so much in what we're creating and what we're designing. And I personally find it soulless. I know that's a heavy word, but yeah, but for sure, I'm still trying to navigate through that shock. I don't think I'm there yet, but I'm navigating through it.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think that yeah, we're living in a culture that puts so much focus, yeah, on money and success, and yeah, that money drives everything. I don't know, this is a personal thought, but I don't know. I feel like if we keep going with a mindset like this, that yeah, money drives everything, or like economy comes first, then we are putting, you know, humanity, and then the world that we are living in, on a point that we have to sacrifice people's health, people's well-being, the and our planet's well-being, in order just to, I don't know, be stick to that way of thinking that money drives everything. Because in a world that money drives everything, uh, I don't know, compassion can't exist, So I think there has to be a shift around that. For sure, it won't happen like fast, but
No,
I mean,
it's
I think we need to address it, and it's an important thing, even if it
yeah,
seems so unrealistic right now. I don't know, for the world that we are living.
I agree. I don't know if this will like scare people with what I'm about to say, but that's my personal belief on how I see things. But I see that, I feel like we're playing a game. We're in a game, and you need to understand the game that you're participating in, and how things are being ruled and functioning. For you to enter that system, enter that game, understand it, for you to start creating shifts, right? A shift and a change isn't going to happen in a day and night. It's going to take time. But we need to enter the system first, uh, and go with the flow, to, but be smart about it. Anyways,
No, no, I
anyways,
agree.
we talked about like the east and west, and talked about so many things. And I guess now, let's talk more about a theme that is more universal to all of us, and that's the cycle of trauma in architectural schools. Ho ho ho. I mean, um, so many of us experience very harsh critique during our educational journey as architects, and this is something I touched based on. How it can really affect the self-esteem of someone. So, do you think that experience affected you as a person? And do you think that those experiences that we've encountered in our educational career led us to become more egotistic as professionals?
Yeah, thank you for asking this question. And firstly, I will answer it based on what you said and my personal experience. And I feel that, yeah, in a personal level, it affected me, uh, not in a conscious way. That I was someone that was being criticized during some years of education. And then I became this person that was criticizing, let's say, my group mates in a harsh way. I became this mean person that I didn't want to be. And again, this goes so much to the first year of my master's, that I was catching myself shouting at my group mates, and then after that starting to cry. I was going through such a roller coaster, and but because I was seeing myself, for a moment I was seeing myself. I was like, this is not the type of person I want to be. Why am I acting like that? If I don't agree with another person, why am I calling them stupid? Why am I acting like that? I don't want to be this type of person. And I think I'm not a psychologist, but I think hurt people, if not healed, hurt people at the end of the day. And I guess what is happening in our today's educational and professional system, especially in the creative industries, that so much of it is subjective thinking rather than, let's say, clear facts.
Mhm.
Um, we are we are creating like these positions of hierarchy, let's say a hierarchy between a university professor and a student, a hierarchy between a boss or a manager and a junior architect. And we made these hierarchies in a way that they come with the privilege of, let's say, controlling the rest of the people, sometimes disrespecting them, like venting on them and being mean, in general. It's like if I reach to a post of, let's say, this hierarchy, if I reach to the top of the hierarchy, I have gotten the right to be mean, And I think this is something that we are teaching in architectural schools. A student that is shouted at during the university juries during the architecture education feels hurt. They feel stupid. They feel as if they're not enough. And then the moment that they reach to a position of power, that they feel that, okay, now I'm in a position that I'm not anymore stupid and I am enough now. They think that now I have the right to do to the people who are below me the same things that have been done to me, and not that this is coming from a bad place. This just comes from the fact that we don't know any other way to do it. Like I've gone through this. I seem to be okay right now, and I've reached here. So other people should go through the same thing. This is the only way to become great. So I think until the moment that we don't get rid of this hierarchy and we are able to, let's say, respect and value every type of idea of a young person, an old person, a student, a professor, until we don't understand that the reality comes, like the truth and the best solution comes from this mixture of all these different solutions, all these different ways of thinking and seeing the world, we will not be able to change this kind of dynamics. But of course, that comes with an awareness that maybe we are lacking right now. But yeah, I think that's what I would say about this subject.
Yeah, wow. I'm gonna try to keep my comments very short on this because I know for sure if was to start like talking about mental health and architecture, I would really it would take us like another 2 hours of the conversation here. But I think not only just understanding like how much hierarchy is could be damaging because I think we're just using it in a negative way. Um, I think we need to reevaluate the idea of what it means to have constructive criticism and have a healthier relationship with criticism, uh, 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 open to ideas and suggestions, for you to deal better with your relationship with the ideas that you come up with. And this like for example, if I was to speak from my personal experience, for the longest time I was very scared to share or speak loudly about my opinions and about how I feel about a certain thing because of how my experiences in school were. Every time I would come up with an idea or a suggestion, my professor would just shut it down and kill my idea without even giving me his perspective to why or how I can make it better. And the same thing, like as I mentioned, is carried to work. So that's when hierarchy becomes extremely damaging, and that's when power becomes very damaging because it's not being used for aiding someone's idea to nourish someone's idea. It's being used to diminish you. And wow, we I'm like using if you're looking at us at YouTube, you're gonna see my hand gestures. If you're listening to us on Spotify, then I apologize. You're missing all the action. But I usually love to talk, and I'm very like I don't know, like I'm very Arab, I guess, like very Japanese. I have to explain using my hands. But
You would
okay,
live a very happy life in Italy because people talk
because
with
there are
their
ways.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay. uh, I think okay, we are laughing a lot, but I really loved our conversation so far. I think we really talked about many, many important points. Again, my architect ego is coming. We had a really great talk, but but yeah, considering the time, I guess we need to wrap up our conversation. But it would be interesting to like finish with this talk around architectural education and its relation to other fields of study. I think this is something again that we talked about before, and I think personally that we become so much better in any field,
Mm.
not only architecture, when we are exposed to interdisciplinary set of knowledge. And those set of knowledge at the first glance might seem very unrelated to what we are actually doing, but at the end of the day will make us better in our own field. So what I wanted to ask you was, what fields do you think architects need to learn from or be exposed to? And also, what's your opinion on the relationship between what we have been taught in architectural schools and the role that it has had on us becoming good leaders in the industry?
Mm. I think I kind of touched base on that before, so I'll try to make it short and sweet. I personally think that it's very important for us to have politics, philosophy, and economy um, integrated in our educational background as architects. Um, and of course, psychology as well. Oh, psychology comes first, right? Because for you to become to understand the basis of psychology, how the brain functions, that triggers, understand the human from a human, like from that lens will allow you to see and understand politics from different lens. It's going to allow you to see economy from different lens. It's going to allow you to be philosophical and see architecture from a different lens. And then, in my perspective, you become a better designer because you are seeing an issue or like something from different perspectives and different lenses. So I really hope that integration happens, and I really hope that we're gonna bring that in our podcast and connect with people that are not just designers and architects, but from different fields, for them to help us navigate through different problems and solutions. As for creating good leaders and the role of creating good leaders in our industry, um, I think, as I mentioned before, our industry is in much need of great leaders right now. And not just leaders that, memorize certain words and learn a certain narrative and share it with us. No, we need narratives that are truly starting to create and implement certain shifts in the way we do things. And it starts like, yes, sure, it's way more complicated than being said, because there's, you have to go through the root of the problem. So you have to start like making changes in the educational system, and before making changes in the educational system you have to raise awareness for how that person is growing up in a person in like in his safe place, right, at home. So there's so many cultural things and social standards that needs to be changed to for us to recreate the narrative of what a leader is really supposed to have. What are the characteristics of a leader, or what does it mean to be a good leader? But if I was to think about it now from our perspective, from like where we're at right now, it's like you need to start from the bottom up, start from the smallest things and the smallest changes that you can do. So for example, at my work, and like you mentioned, like one of the things that I know and I'm very very aware of is when my ego kicks in, and when I feel that I get irritated because someone is not getting it the way I do, or they don't have the exact same speed when we're doing work. And and obviously this has to do a lot because of like during from my experiences from my school. And I catch myself on how harsh I can be. So I'm a project coordinator at this firm that I work on in. And I hated myself so much for being so mean to my team member and my colleague, because I, in my perspective, it's like, why are you not on the same speed that I am, or why are you not doing things the same way I do? And I brought it to her attention. I'm like, listen, I know, and I know a lot of people might disagree with this, by the way, because they think that at work, you don't have to share insecurities, or you don't have to be vulnerable. Just keep it on a very professional way. I don't share that perspective, and nor do I believe in it. So I cannot. Like, I am already in a workplace that is so against my values that I'm like, no, I'm not letting go of all the values that I believe in. So I stick to what serves me best. And I was extremely open with her, and I'm like, listen, I am sharing with you that I know I have those certain things that I need to work on. So I need you to bring it to my attention that when you feel that I'm mistreating you, or you feel like, okay, like I'm being unfair, please stop me, and please tell me that I don't appreciate that. For people to start learning that we need to voice our opinion, we need to voice when we feel like we're being disrespected, of course within reason. And we need to voice, to have different opinions. And those are certain things that we can start implementing on, like a very basic and uh, um, like baby steps, as what it takes to become good leaders in our industry. I have to be quite honest with you. I still don't think I have the experience nor enough knowledge, and I don't think it's fair for me to tell you what it takes to be a good leader. For me, a good leader is a good human. A leader is someone that's willing to listen and understand, more than anything. A leader is someone that's going to be able to empathize with me, and with my ideas, and to help me grow. And all the other skills come after. So that's my humble opinion. So yeah.
No, I'm really happy that you mentioned that a good leader is a good human, and I think something that doesn't uh, I mean, we don't talk about it, especially in the education and especially in the education in the West, is that education is also for making people becoming better humans. Like there is so much focus only on the scientific and like the practical part of education, that we really don't put any focus on actually creating, or I don't know, like planting the seeds of humanity kind of in the people that are exposed to the education. So I'm really happy that you brought that point up.
Thank you.
uh well, I think this has been really great from my perspective at least, and I'm really happy that we had this talk, and I already feel that I know you better after this talk. And I'm so happy that I had the chance to learn from your experience, and we had this chance to talk. I'm just grateful.
I know, me too. Honestly, I'm very grateful because, you know, I do believe that both of us, we have a certain niche in our personalities, and we're both very like hyper aware people. And we know that for us to do this is way out of our comfort zones. And this is a challenge for the both of us, especially to speak publicly and, connect with people. Um, so I am very forever grateful for this journey, to connect with everyone all over the world. And I hope that you always remember that we are two human beings at the end of the day. So nothing that's gonna come out of us is gonna be perfect. We're gonna have a lot of mistakes, and we're gonna have a lot of things that are not done perfectly. There's gonna be a lot of pauses, a lot of off tangents. But you know what? This is every time we're gonna watch this, it's gonna remind us where we're at and where we're gonna get to, and it's gonna help us grow more and more and more. So my advice is to always start, and don't, coming from someone that's a perfectionist, trust me, don't wait till you perfect an idea, and don't wait till you perfect something to kick off a project or kick off an idea. Start somewhere, at least start, and then it will flow and you're going to learn, and that's going to be the most beautiful thing that's going to ever happen. So I'm very, very excited to see us evolve in this. And for now, I'm just gonna tell you ciao ciao. I'm gonna say ciao in Italian. Is it ciao in Italian?
Yeah,
Ciao,
yeah.
right? Ciao.
To say both
And
to say goodbye and say hi.
ciao. Oh, so ciao is for hi and goodbye.
Yeah.
So ciao, hola, ciao, ciao. Okay. And make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. Okay. And then we'll add, of course, everything at the end of the podcast. And you can always find us with the same name, Designed to Connect. So connect with us and see you soon on our next episode with great, great, great people.
Exactly. So our next topic, please don't miss it. It's super interesting. Our next topic is going to be about the challenges in the architectural profession, and we are going to have a really, really, really interesting talk with Jake and Erin from Out of Architecture. I know that the name of the firm seems very interesting, so you can already go and read about them. And yeah, make sure that you will listen to the next episode and the ones that will come after that. And really, thank you for if you're listening to this. Really, thank you that you stayed till this moment. And yeah, see you soon.
You soon, and hope 2022 will be a blessed year on all of us. Ciao.
Ciao.